It preserves it. If you thought about it, usually history is written by the winner. If I won the debate, I would have all the justification to completely erase your words from that legacy. So I substantiate only my view, and it becomes the norm. The Talmud doesn't work like that. If elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim, who knows if in another generation the words of the house of Shammai are going to make sense, and there's going to be a certain wisdom that does not apply to this generation but may apply to another generation. So now look at this. Jerusalemite Talmud, Sukkah 53b. On what grounds did the house of Hillel merit that halacha should be established according to their position? Now look at this. Rabbi Yehuda, son of Pazi, said, we heard this already, because they gave precedence in their reporting to the words of the house of Shammai before stating their own view, and moreover, they were wont to consider the words of the house of Shammai and reconsider their own position to the point of agreeing with the house of Shammai. And if we think that this is a hyperbole, let's look at Mishnah Eduyot. This is from the Mishnah, an earlier text, and look what it says. It says the following thing. These are the issues regarding which the house of Hillel reconsidered their position and reverted to rule in accordance with the house of Shammai. There follow 4 cases dealing with levirate marriage, the ketubah, the rights of non-Jewish slaves, and ritual of purity and impurity, in each of which, after disputation back and forth, it is stated, Chazru bet Hillel lehorot kebet Shammai, kedivrei bet Shammai. The house of Hillel reverted to rule like the position of the house of Shammai. Now I want you to start thinking like rabbis. How does this verse at the end does not contradict the verse that we heard before that says halacha is always according to Hillel?
Because of the qualities.
No, listen to what I'm asking. Here we read, the house of Hillel reverted to rule like the position of the house of Shammai. Yet at the same time, we read somewhere else a divine voice saying, halacha should always be like the house of Hillel. Are they actually now going against God or against that heavenly voice?
No.
Why not?
Yes, they are. With the house of Hillel, once they entered into the debate and discussion and came to revise it.
No, there's two answers.
Yes.
There's 2 answers. First of all, Hillel has 2 positions. He has his initial position, and then he has his final position after the process.
Okay.
Together with Shammai. So in a way, this is still halacha ke Hillel. It's just according to Hillel's final position achieved after the process.
Yeah.
And secondly, if we had the time to do the Tanur of Achnai, that's a passage which takes it to the ultimate, where there is, in the course of a Talmudic debate, an attempted, at least in the way it's brought in the text, an attempted intervention of God through various miracles and His voice and so on and so forth, and the rabbis reject it. They actually say, sorry, you've stepped out of the process, and now the process is out.
I'll actually talk about this in a minute, and I will actually argue with you that not only do they not reject God, they bring God back into the picture to begin with, to say you never left. And in a minute we'll talk about this. But you're right. Tanur shel Achnai is the quintessential rabbinic text. What you said before now about what we see here is absolutely correct. If the house of Hillel decides that the ruling is according to the house of Shammai, it is still the decision of the house of Hillel. So the house of Hillel now comes and says, I decide that my previous ruling doesn't hold water, and therefore my decision is to listen to Shammai. Mm-hmm. So there is no contradiction. Mm-hmm. In the last 5 minutes that we have, I do want to touch upon Achnai's oven because I knew we won't have time to deal with it in full, but it is a magnificent piece, and I urge you, if you have the time and the inclination, go and look at it. Go and look at it. Baba Metzia 59b. The story goes, let's see if I can do it in 5 minutes. The story goes about a yeshiva of the Chachamim of the Sanhedrin under the leadership of Rabbi Eliezer, who is the head of the Sanhedrin, which is pretty much equivalent of Chief Justice, a man who knows his Torah, trust me on that one, a big sage. And they argue over a tanur, an oven who broke, and they want to patch it with sand, glass, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's called Tanur shel Achnai, Achnai's oven. And they ask, is it kosher after we mend it in this way? Is it kosher or is it not kosher? Rabbi Eliezer, sitting with the 11 rabbis, says kosher. All the rabbis, 11, say not kosher. Okay? So far so good? Rabbi Eliezer comes now and says this following thing. If halacha is according to me, if I'm correct and you're wrong, let the tree outside the walls of the Bet Midrash prove it. Upon which the carob tree or whatever tree it was uproots itself in the air, flies 100 cubits and replants itself in the earth. And some say 400 cubits. To give it an aura of authenticity, there is an argument about the actual length. Okay? The rabbis look at it, you would say, oh, if I see something like this, I'm not a divine endorsement, blah, blah, blah. We just talked about it, miracles. My friends, we're no longer in that world. The rabbis are not impressed. One cannot bring re'aya min hacharuv. One cannot validate one's point by a miracle. So Rabbi Eliezer doesn't get it. He says, if according to me, let the water in the aqueduct run against gravity. It happens, they give him the same response. So now he's really angry, and he says the following thing. If halacha is according to me, let the walls of this Bet Midrash prove it, which the rabbis write it very interestingly, because for them, he's literally threatening the integrity of the Bet Midrash of the rabbinic institution. And the walls are about to collapse, whereupon Rabbi Joshua leaps to his feet and rebukes the walls and says, if rabbis argue about matters of Torah, who are you to intervene? And the walls remain like this, 45 degrees angle, and some say that they remain until this very day. I'm still looking for that Bet Midrash, by the way. Okay? Now comes the big one. Rabbi Eliezer says, if halacha is kmoti, if halacha is according to me, let the heavens prove it. Whereupon a heavenly voice, bat kol, and rebukes the rabbis. How dare you to argue with Rabbi Eliezer, whose judgment on matters of halacha has been correct on each and every issue. I would say, guys, okay, enough. Walls, carob trees. Argue with a heavenly voice. And then Rabbi Joshua leaps to his feet and says the following thing. It is not in the heavens. However, what Rabbi Joshua does is a brilliant, brilliant move. And here I want to add to what you said. I would agree that at face value, it sounds like Rabbi Joshua is rejecting divinity. But what Rabbi Joshua does is the most brilliant rabbinic move. Rabbi Joshua quotes the Torah on Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. לא בשמיים היא לומר, לא רחוקה מעבר לים, כי קרוב אליך הדבר. It is very near you in your heart and in your mouth and in your action. בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו. What Rabbi Joshua does when he says to the heavenly voice, לא בשמיים היא, he comes and says to God, you said in the Torah that I fully accept that truth no longer resides in you, but rather in the Torah. So by not listening to you right now, I'm actually listening to you. Because by telling you not to intervene in that rabbinic process, I'm actually adhering to the commandment that you had given me already in the Bible that said from this point there is a transfer of authority from divine authorship to human authority. And by not allowing you to intervene at this juncture, by not listening to you at this juncture, I'm actually listening to your immortal voice. Because you had already put it before us in Sinai. As God eventually says, Nitzchuni banai, which could be understood as what?
My children have conquered me. My children have conquered me.
Not necessarily.
Or overcome, surpassed, yeah?
You have understood, it can also be translated as, you have understood an eternal wisdom. Netzach. Netzach also means eternity. In other words, what the rabbis come and say the following thing. Imagine that you want to get the full picture, the ultimate truth, and you sell all your stuff and you go to the Himalayas and you climb that mountain. Eventually you get to that mountain. On top of the mountain there is a temple. Inside the temple there is a guru. And you come and you prostrate yourself and you say, wise man, wise woman, whatever, what is the ultimate truth? Says, you want to hear the ultimate truth? Okay, listen to me. Listen to me. Don't listen to anyone but yourself. What do? If you don't listen to him, you already listened to him. And if you want to listen to him, you can't listen to him. Right? This is exactly what Rabbi Joshua is telling God. By not listening to you, I already listened to you. Because you told me not to listen to you. Nitzchuni banai. They realize something profound here. But there's no rejection here. There is an absolute acceptance of divinity and the profound, brilliant, in my opinion, integration of the biblical model into the rabbinic one. So in conclusion, I wanted to show you here two things simultaneously. One, a transition from one model to another, which at face value seem radically different from one another. But two, not less important, even more important, is the ingenious, really sometimes mind-boggling attempts of the rabbis to first substantiate themselves as the default leaders of the new model without losing sight of the previous model, but rather giving it validity through a completely new or revised form of Jewish life. That's why, if anybody comes to you and says, Judaism says, you should be skeptical at the very least. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joel, do you want to say a word about next session?
Ken, sure.